Shout out to SneakyPig200 for supporting me on level 3 of Patreon. Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. So a few days ago, Nintendo announced the 4th wave of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, coming to the game on March the 9th this year. It feels kind of hard to believe it, we're already 4 waves into this DLC, and that we've probably passed the halfway point now, considering we're only getting 6 waves in total. I still remember the times when even Wave 2 was a mystery, how much more difficult it was to predict the upcoming tracks. Something which has become easier over time, with fewer courses to pick from now. One of the things that have been of the biggest help for predicting the upcoming courses is the prefix leak, where data miners were able to figure out which console prefix each upcoming track was associated with. It was found out about shortly after Wave 1 released, and it ended up being 100% correct for Wave 2. For Waves 3 and 4 it ended up being slightly different, keyword slightly. On the whole, it still very much resembled the originally intended order, to the point where we can draw the conclusion that Nintendo has already decided on what courses to bring back, and that they put the tracks according to the prefix leak in an order that would make sense, as if you were to take the currently existing tracks and order them like the prefix leak showed, it would still feel somewhat natural. The Nitro tracks, however, have become more difficult to predict. I made a video about this topic back in October last year. At that point, there were 8 Nitro tracks data mined for Mario Kart Tour, the game where these Nitros are really from. And it seemed like 3 of those would be cities, just like it seems it's gonna be in the DLC according to the prefix leak. But then, one of the tracks thought to be a city track just ended up being a normal Nitro, in spite of having assets data mined usually only associated with city courses. After this revelation, it's also been speculated that 2 of these supposedly upcoming Nitros may not actually be that, considering they only had assets labeled as test. One of them even had a Moray test object, which would very much likely point to an underwater Nitro, but we already have that now, so we can't really know for sure. If they're only test courses, that means we only have 4 data mined Nitro tracks. And we also can't be sure of what is a city or not anymore, which will make predicting waves 5 and 6 extra interesting. And with all the information we have at hand, that's what this video is gonna be about, to ease our anticipation. So with all of that being said, let's get started! The first cup we will be talking about is Wave 5's Feather Cup. Like every other cup before it in the Booster Course Pass, this one will most likely start out with a city track. The real question is which? According to the prefix leak, we are due to get at least 5 more city tracks in the DLC, which supposedly also includes a track at the end of the Feather Cup. As of right now, we only have 2 currently released Mario Kart Tour city tracks not in the Booster Course Pass yet, but neither of them would personally fit the Feather Cup's opening in my opinion. They're either too ambitious or they're just not summer themed in the slightest. So I believe the first track of Wave 5 will be Madrid Esplanade, based on a data mined MUB MD course from Mario Kart Tour, which is assets like fences data mined, usually only used for city tracks. As far as cities go, this one isn't really as famous or talked about as a lot of the other ones in the game. Even from Spain, I'd say Barcelona gets more attention worldwide. That's why I personally think putting it here would be the most logical choice. I've noticed that most of the city tracks in the DLC are ones that are really famous worldwide and are regularly visited by tourists. Unfortunately, Madrid isn't quite as known for that, and assuming that Nintendo would probably put more famous cities in spots like a finale, the final wave, or maybe even the Cherry Cup, I can't see any other spot for this other than the first track of Wave 5. I still think it has a lot of potential though. The fact that we might be getting cities other than the big ones is a very welcome change in my book. I personally think it may be a slightly laid back track, but still slightly hectic, with maybe a dazzling sunrise, to get you pumped up for the rest of the wave. And in that regard, Madrid would be a very respectable first impression to Wave 5. For the second course, I'm going to be picking a GameCube track. One which I believe was probably first intended for Wave 4 actually, Mushroom Bridge. If there is a pattern I've noticed for all waves thus far in the Booster Course Pass, it's that the second track of the first cup in a wave is always a relatively simple and easy track no one really goes too crazy about. That can be said for Toad Circuit, Mario Circuit 3, Boo Lake and Riverside Park. So I think it's only likely that Wave 5 will continue that trend. Mushroom Bridge has potentially been data mined for Mario Kart Tour through some car assets, although they could very well be from Mushroom City as well. Personally though, having a city track not based on a real city in a DLC that already has a lot of city tracks would feel a bit excessive, and in that case, Mushroom Bridge would be a better track to make sure the DLC doesn't feel too redundant. Plus, I personally believe that it's very likely it was originally meant for Wave 4 until Waluigi Stadium was deprived of its spot in Wave 3, potentially pushing this track forward to here. So yeah. For the third track, I think we will be getting Wii Koopa Cape. This is a track I'm very certain will make an appearance, thanks to the fact that data miners were able to find an alternate version of the Booster Course Pass banner in the game's files shortly after Wave 1 released, which displayed a wide array of unreleased tracks at the time, like Waluigi Stadium, Sky High Sunday, etc. Koopa Cape is also here, so it's safe to assume that we will be seeing this track in the Booster Course Pass. We're definitely gonna need a fan favorite in Wave 5, and this is a relatively difficult, yet adventurous course, so it can serve to break the pace after the more relaxing Mushroom Bridge. The final track in the Feather Cup, according to the prefix leak, is going to be a city track. Personally, I think this one could be Athens Adventure. This one is based on the Datamined Mob AT track from Mario Kart Tour, which has pillar assets, possibly referencing the Acropolis of Athens. Athens is pretty well known to most people, and its geography is quite elevated, which makes me think that it would probably be a more difficult and ambitious city track than Madrid, which would suit it as a finale. At the same time, feathers are also commonly associated with Greece, the country where Athens is located, so it would be a missed opportunity to not have this track in the Feather Cup. But overall, that's my version of the Feather Cup. Up next is the Cherry Cup. For the city track, I'm very certain that it will be Los Angeles Laps. It's probably one of the most stereotypically summer-themed city tracks ever, and it also has a pretty ambitious track design as every single variant takes place in a completely different area. For that reason, it wouldn't really fit as the Feather Cup opening track. At the same time, it's also pretty relaxing though, so it wouldn't really fit as a finale either. Or well, it would fit as the finale track of the Boomerang Cup in the context of being a teaser for the summer season. But when Wave 5 releases, it's probably already going to be summer, so the context wouldn't be there. So I'm putting it here. For the second track, I think we're getting a course that no one is looking forward to. The final SNES track. Well, it depends on what the SNES track is. To be fair, there's been quite a lot of discussions about this particular subject, since there are many possible answers, but personally, I believe it will be a Vanilla Lake. This is because it's referenced on advertisements in the remake of Coconut Mall in this game, and Mario Kart 8 is famous for teasing other tracks in the game within tracks. Of course, we can't be fully sure since the model of this track is from Mario Kart Tour, where Vanilla Lake is already in the game, but either way, I think it's something to consider. Sure, you might say it's too similar to GBA Snowland aesthetically, but that can be fixed. Maybe add some snowfall to make the atmosphere feel slightly different. Maybe combine the two Vanilla Lake variants, so it starts out like one, but over time, the ice lake in the middle starts to melt, so by the final lap, it will resemble Vanilla Lake 2. With how much more ambitious each new wave is looking to be, I'm honestly starting to think that this could end up being the case. If not, I'm sticking to Vanilla Lake 1, but I hope it could be better than that. After that, I think we'd be getting Daisy Cruiser. Since we're gonna get 4 GameCube tracks according to the prefix leak, one wave is gonna end up with 2 GameCube tracks, since the first one was in Wave 4. And I think Wave 5 should be the one with 2 GCN tracks. Daisy Cruiser is a very summery track with the cruise ship in the middle of the ocean on a sunny day acting as a setting, so releasing it in a summer-themed wave would just make a lot of sense. Plus it's also got a bit of a calm before storm vibe to it with the relaxing atmosphere, yet slightly peculiar gameplay with moving tables and randomly flooded basements with moray eels. Which leads us to the storm, being the unlabeled Nitro. Personally, I believe this Nitro is going to be the Datamined Mob DK track and that it's going to be a Donkey Kong themed course. It was pretty interesting that Wave 4's unlabeled Nitro ended up being a celebration of the Yoshi's Island game series, and this has led me to believe that Wave 5 might have something similar. Both Waves 4 and 5 only have 1 Nitro track each in the prefix leak, while Wave 6 supposedly got 3. Maybe they wanted crossover tracks for Waves 4 and 5, while Wave 6 would get some of the more out-of-the-blue Nitro tracks like perhaps Piranha Plant Cove. Sure, Mob DK could stand for something else. There's no proof yet that it's specifically a Donkey Kong themed track, but I think it's very possible. And that concludes Wave 5 for me, which leaves us with Wave 6, the final one of the Booster Course Pass. I can't believe it's the last one. No doubt, Wave 6 will hopefully end up becoming one of the strongest waves of the bunch, so that they can end it in style. As I said, the prefix Datamine pointed towards 3 separate Nitro tracks in just this wave alone, on top of the 2 obvious city tracks, which leaves us with just 3 retros. And I couldn't find a way to put any of these Nitros in Wave 5, so I'm gonna keep them all here at their original spots. First off, the Acorn Cup city track. I'm gonna, quite expectedly, predict Vancouver Velocity. As far as winter-themed city tracks go, Vancouver Velocity is surprisingly enough the only one, which would make Wave 6 a good fit for it, considering we might see it release at that time. It's also probably the biggest fan favorite city track, so it makes sense to save it for the last wave. But it's also not quite chaotic enough to be in the last cup, so it's gonna be here. Alright, so the second Acorn Cup track. I don't know how popular or controversial this choice is gonna be, but personally, I believe that we're gonna have to wait until Wave 6 to play GBA Sunset Wilds. This track also appeared in the banner leak, so we can assume it will make an appearance sooner or later. Now yeah, it's a desert track, so it might have been more appropriate for Wave 5. However, what other retro track could possibly fill in the spot here? Maybe Koopa Cape, but the prefix leak already points towards a Wii track being in Wave 6. And with supposedly only 3 retro tracks, I think they're gonna want to make all of them be from a different game for variety's sake. And a SNES track would be very anticlimactic here, so that leaves us with Sunset Wilds. It has an interesting gimmick where the sun will slowly go down for every lap, making for an ambitious element, fitting for a Wave 6 track. Gameplay-wise, it's a bit more easy and simple though, so it can serve as a track that will break the pace in a most likely difficult wave, so I'm putting it here. After that, we get 2 of Wave 6's Nitro tracks. One of them is gonna be Mob OR or Deep Mori Trench for sure. Oh wait, I'm sorry, Piranha Plant Cove. Oh, that's such a boring name. It's a very unique Nitro track in that this one has 3 variants like a city track, which will most likely be combined into one massive track when it arrives in the Booster Course Pass. The atmosphere is pretty relaxing though, so I don't think it would suit the finale quite that well, so it will be the 3rd Acorn Cup track instead. The final track of the Acorn Cup, I have no clue what it could be. Well, okay, I do have a clue, but the last of the 5 reliable Nitro tracks would, in my opinion, suit the Spiny Cup better. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna have to come up with a brand new idea. I already have 3 track ideas which I coined back from my Wave 3 to 6 and 4 to 6 videos, all of which I'd really like to see. I do have another brand new idea though as well. Imagine a setting taking place high up in the clear blue sky with a few clouds. But this isn't any sky, it's more of a sky city, with green pipes jutting out from every corner, with piranha plants of all kinds just chilling there. These green pipes are both used to drive on as a road, but also as warps to different areas within this sky city. Introducing Green Pipe City. Yeah, I know we're probably not getting something like this, but it's kinda impossible to correctly predict this spot, so I just went for an idea I've been having for a very long time, based on a level I made in Super Mario Maker 2, one of my most proud ones at that. That concludes the Acorn Cup. Which only leaves us the final cup of the Booster Course Pass now, the Spiny Cup. For the city track, it's pretty up in the air as to what it could be, because none of the other reliable Nitro tracks have any indication of being a city track. Personally, I have many different ideas for what city could be here. In fact, the discussion surrounding this is pretty big to the point that it would be best if I made a separate video on what this city track could be. I'm not even 100% sure myself, so I will probably change this prediction in a future video, but for now, I'm picking Rio Runways. As Rio de Janeiro is a pretty famous city, with lots of notable landmarks and elevation, which could make for a pretty epic final city for the final cup. Although personally, to be completely fair, I think Sarajevo would be a better pick in this regard, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Like Rio, it has a similar mountain setting, but it also doesn't have beaches, something Rio has which could make it conflict with LA Laps. But unfortunately, Sarajevo is pretty unknown, which is a bit sad because it's a really underrated city, speaking as someone who visited it just a few months ago, with its rich history and unique setting. So for now, I'm picking Rio. Although Nintendo, if you're watching this video, please give us Sarajevo instead. It would be a much more unique track aesthetically, while still probably having the same epic feel Rio would, with mountains and epic glider sections. Anyways, for the second track, the prefix leak pointed towards the final GameCube track, and I think it will be GCN Dino Dino Jungle. Excluding the fact that it was also advertised on several banners in Wii Coconut Mall, it would make sense from a pattern I've noticed. Remember how DS Peach Gardens was the second track of the Moon Cup, the last of a row? Well, beforehand, it was also the second track of Mario Kart DS's Special Cup and Mario Kart Wii's Lightning Cup, both of which were also at the end of a row of cups. Dino Dino Jungle underwent the exact same treatment in Mario Kart Double Dash and then Mario Kart 7, in addition to also being in Mario Kart Tour. And the fact that the prefix leak is even pointing towards a GameCube track right here makes me believe in this track's potential even more. Sure, DK Mountain is more of a fan favorite, but fan favorites don't always get chosen, just ask Airship Fortress. So that's my pick. For the third track, I think we'll be seeing the final of the reliable Nitro tracks, Mob BR, which is very much heavily rumored to be a bathroom track. Besides that it's a wacky concept which warrants a spot in the final cup, I think a bathroom track right here makes sense narratively as well. As we know, Mario's origin is as a plumber, which bathrooms can very much be associated with, so it could maybe be seen as Mario's signature track. On another note, the second to last track in Mario Kart games is often a Bowser's Castle, a track based around Mario's arch nemesis. So in a weird way, having this time instead a track centered around Bowser's arch nemesis as the second to last track would be a bit of a cool irony, since we don't have any obvious indication of Bowser Castle track coming to the Booster Course Pass either way. So yeah, which leaves us the final track of the Booster Course Pass, and honestly I don't think it's much of a surprise as to what it could be, like at all. I mean, the prefix leak points towards a Wii track. What Wii track has an impeccable difficulty, a wonderful credits-like atmosphere to it, and even a stunning remake in Mario Kart Tour that looks like it was built with the Booster Course Pass in mind? Wii Rainbow Road. And so, those are my current predictions for the upcoming tracks for Wave 5 and 6 for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. But what are your predictions? If you like this video, then make sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel as I talk about everything Mario related. With all that being said, I'm signing off. Until next time.